Yashodanandana Vrajeta Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajeta Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vaishnavrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So I'll read the invocation starting on page 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vikam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parinavasaitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Kṛṣṇa Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitam Hey Kṛṣṇa Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Nami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Vipa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Veshatarine. Jai Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to this continued discussion of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The second chapter is entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. So here in chapter 2, Kṛṣṇa is giving an overview of the entire Bhagavad Gita. All the different topics that are to be discussed. So today, beginning with the 54th verse, we'll be entering the final section of this second chapter. And it's going to begin with some very important questions by Arjuna. So Kṛṣṇa has been speaking for the last several verses about how to perform our duty. We have various activities we have to perform. And what was the fundamental instruction of how to do our duty that Kṛṣṇa guided us to?
Without any attachment.
Yeah. So the fruits, the results of our labor are going to come. And our inclination, based on what we have understood through just common experience, is that whatever fruits we should collect, we should attach to them. Kṛṣṇa is saying you should detach. Detach because you're not the owner. I am not the owner. Kṛṣṇa is the owner. And we have temporarily manufactured some things in the factory, manufactured some source code, whatever our profession is. But Kṛṣṇa is the one who's facilitating everything. So why is he telling us to detach? For what purpose?
Because when we are attached, we will never be happy.
Because when we attach, we'll never be happy. What is the single goal Kṛṣṇa has in speaking this entire Bhagavad Gita? He has only one goal.
Happiness. We have to be happy.
He wants who to be happy? Him or us?
All of us to be happy.
He wants all of us to be happy. Just like a mother and father. They have only one goal for their children. What is that goal? To be happy. So to achieve that, they give some other goals. Obtain these grades, get to this university, this job, these sort of things. But ultimately it's to be happiness. So Kṛṣṇa is speaking exclusively for the purpose of how to give all of us happiness. And what kind of happiness?
Eternal happiness.
Eternal happiness. Anybody wants temporary happiness? Anybody? No. We want it never to end. And we want it in unlimited quantity. That is our goal. So we think until we come to knowledge that let me acquire and acquire and acquire more things by my own hard endeavor, and then I'll try to enjoy them. But every time we taste these fruits, we're getting some happiness, some sweetness, followed by so much frustration and disappointment. So Kṛṣṇa has guided us that the key theme here, counter to our logic, is detachment actually will lead to happiness. And that is a ego-shattering statement. Because we don't want to detach. I want them. They're mine. I created them. I worked so hard for them. Kṛṣṇa is saying, yeah, you may have worked hard for them. But trust me, when you detach and work with me, then you'll find perfection and happiness. But Kṛṣṇa said very, very importantly, what can you not detach from?
From the devotional service.
Ultimately from devotional service.
From your duty.
From your duty. You have to do your duty. You have to be active. Spirituality is not about, well, I'm just going to kick back and depend on Kṛṣṇa now. We depend on Kṛṣṇa. But he said, we must do our duty. So not doing our duty is also a form of attachment. So we must do our activities. We must maintain our family, maintain our homes, maintain our jobs, maintain society, relationships. All these things we must do. But Kṛṣṇa is saying, do them with me. And when you do, then you'll find happiness. So in the 53rd verse now, Kṛṣṇa says, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery words of the Vedas, and it remains fixed in trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. How many of us want pure divine consciousness? Peace of mind. No turbulence, no stress, no fear, no anxiety. Just sweet consciousness. Anybody? We all do. It's what we're searching for. We think attaching to more wealth, to more fame, to more power, that's going to give it to me. Kṛṣṇa is saying, what is going to do it? Fixed in trance of self-realization. This is not some kind of meditational trance we can aspire to, no. This is being fixed in self-realizing. What? knowing I am spirit soul. And I have an eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. When I'm fixed in that knowledge, then all of my activities become very clear. Just like if I am pushed into an office building, and there are so many floors, so many different departments, so many cubicles, and someone says, go do work. Well, I have to know, what is my role in this building, this corporation? Who am I? Am I the janitor? Am I the CEO? Am I manager? What is my role? Then I know what to do. So similarly, we are in this human form of life, but we must understand, who am I? Then our activities become clear. Attain suffering, you will attain divine consciousness. So Arjuna was very disturbed at the beginning of this chapter. Right? Do you remember? He was very fearful. He was in stress, anxiety. He was shaking from his fear. Anybody likes those situations? So now, from that position, Kṛṣṇa has spoke divine consciousness. And immediately Arjuna thinks, oh, this is what I want to know about. Tell me more. So, Arjuna asks Kṛṣṇa some very specific questions about this person. Because he wants to achieve this status. Right? If we see some person who's experiencing something great, we want to know how they got there. What do they do? What is their position? All these things we want to know, right? So Arjuna is going to ask 4 questions. And he is showing us, actually, this is the means of spiritual life. When we hear something that gives us some doubt, we should ask questions. When we hear something that we want to know more about, we should ask questions. In the beginning of the 3rd chapter, Arjuna is going to say, time out, Kṛṣṇa. You said something in the 49th verse of the 2nd chapter I didn't understand. And he asked questions. So Arjuna is showing us the means of spiritual progress. We have questions, we ask. So Arjuna, hearing divine consciousness, sthita-prajñasya, he asks these questions. So from here until the end of the chapter, the next 18 verses, Kṛṣṇa is going to answer Arjuna's 4 questions. So we'll be discussing these questions in great detail. And before we read the verse, like there was a central theme in this last section, which was, what was the central theme? What was the detachment. Detachment from the fruits. Okay? That's the key to happiness. By detaching, one purifies, one becomes free of all the reactions, one finds bliss and happiness. So in this section, when Kṛṣṇa is describing this person who has divine consciousness, there is a central theme that we're going to keep coming back to over and over again. And it is, anybody want to guess? Maybe some of you have seen this picture. The soul, the senses. What about the senses? Someone who has got divine consciousness, what is true about their senses? They are in control. Now, as soon as we say control, we think, oh, that's no fun. Right? But we're going to see how, by controlling the senses, one finds this great bliss and happiness. And how it is very... Let me ask a question. Anybody thinks it's easy to control the senses? Well, you're all in for luck. Because Kṛṣṇa is going to explain how it is extraordinarily easy. Because, like any loving parent, when something is difficult, they want to make it as easy as possible for them. No? Why? Because they want to see their child succeed. So Kṛṣṇa knows our inclination is controlling the senses is not going to be so easy. So Kṛṣṇa is going to show us how it is so easy. And Raji will discuss that in this verse. Because this image has 5 features to it. In the back side here is a passenger. That is our spirit soul. The driver is the intelligence. The mind are the ropes that the driver, the intelligence, is holding. And the mind is, or the ropes are tying together the senses. So if you're driving on a road in this chariot, what happens if the horses begin to run free? What happens to the destination for this passenger? Is it very secure? Oh, it could fall into the ditch. So in order to have the safe destination, you need a good driver, right? The driver has to hold on to the reins. This is our intelligence. Our intelligence must control all the ideas that come into mind. How many ideas come into mind?
Billions.
Billions, thank you. Crazy amounts. Sometimes we wonder, where did that thought even come from? Anybody has had that experience? We're driving down the road, we're doing, all of a sudden, where did that come from? Right? These thoughts come into mind. But the intelligence must know yes and no, do and don't. Your mind, you want to do this, but it's not good. You should not go to this party because tomorrow you have a big interview. The mind says, yeah, we'll just go for 5 minutes. Intelligence says, no, you said that last time, and look what happened. And in this way, this dialogue goes. But we know sometimes the mind wins, and sometimes the intelligence wins. So we're trying to strengthen our intelligence. Right? When the driver is very strong, he never lets go of those reins, those ropes. And when those ropes are tightly held, then the senses are tightly held. But are the senses useless? Are they an obstacle in our path of devotional service? No. The chariot will go nowhere without the horses. The horses are very important. These horses, you can see, eyes, ears, eyes, nose, ears, touch, tongue. Right? These are the 5 senses this chariot is representing. So we need the senses. So sense control doesn't mean we tell the horses stop. No, but we want to direct them into a productive avenue. And we want to use the senses. Because then the chariot will move forward. The soul will reach its destination. So when Kṛṣṇa is speaking in this section about sense control, he is not saying don't see nice things, don't hear nice things, don't taste nice things. No. He's saying you should hear, smell, to all of them. Use the senses, but use them with intelligence so that the soul may achieve its goal. Because if we don't, then our journey is going to end in the ditch somewhere. So a central theme we'll see in this section, we'll keep coming back to it, is about sense control. And just like detachment initially has this painful emotion, but we have some logic now that actually results in sweetness. Similarly, by utilizing the senses intelligently, which is what we mean by sense control, we'll make great progress. But please don't make the mistake to think sense control means to stop the senses. That is like stopping the horses on our journey. That also will not work. Yes, stopping them from running into the ditch is helpful, but there are certain, like the jnanis, who will say you should not see anything, should not hear anything, not touch anything. Well, that's good to keep you out of the ditch. but it's not good to get you to your destination. You still have to do something. Right? So we're going to speak about how to use the senses in a way that gives so much pleasure and happiness. And Kṛṣṇa will give us the easy way. So we'll keep in mind this intelligence, mind, senses, and the soul. Okay? So let's read now the 54th verse. Somebody wants to read the verse? You can read just English also, no problem.
O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk?
Purport?
As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly one who is Krishna conscious as his particular nature, talking, walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As rich man as his symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, a deceased man as his symptoms by which he is known as deceased, or as a learned man as his symptoms. So a man in transcendental consciousness of Kṛṣṇa has specific symptoms in various dealings. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad-gītā. Most important is how the man in Kṛṣṇa conscious speaks, for speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak, and certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only Krishna and of matters related to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow as stated.
So, Arjuna has asked 4 questions. So let's see, our Acharya's comment, what is the meaning of these 4 questions? Why he wants to know how does he sit? Or how does he walk? Now there is this meaning of what Arjuna is trying to understand. So the first one is fairly clear. What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is merged in transcendence? Who has this divine consciousness? Right? What are his symptoms? Why is this important to know?
So that we can try to follow.
So we can try to follow. What is this person like? What are their characteristics of such a person? Right? Yeah. No, we'll answer the question. But the question is, what are the characteristics Arjuna wants to know? Because if someone has achieved this very peaceful, blissful state of mind, now Arjuna wants to know, okay, how can I determine who is such a person? Is it based on how they dress? Is it based on their name? Is it based on how many of Bhagavad Gita verses they have memorized? What are the characteristics that define this person, Kṛṣṇa, that you're speaking about? So you can see there's a very important question. And Prabhupada speaks in this purport, right? That there are symptoms for each and every type of person. There are different characteristics. So we want to know what is the characteristic of this divinely situated person. Because then we can try to follow in those footsteps. Because that's what Arjuna wants to do. He's like, I want that. Now what are the characteristics or qualities I need? His second question is, how does he speak? What is his language? Here, Arjuna wants to know, how was his mind and his mood? We know, we speak what we feel. Sometimes we wish, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Right? I wish I would have bit my tongue.
I never think that.
Never. No. Never. Right? They're like, oh, darn it. But so Arjuna wants to know, how is this person's mind and words situated? When they meet somebody friendly, but also when they meet someone like their enemy. Okay, it's easy to be happy and blissful when you're surrounded by all the people that you like, But what happens when you face some opposition? Well, how is this person affected? How are they affected when somebody is neutral to them, maybe doesn't give them the attention they want? So like this, Arjuna is now testing a little bit the deeper position of this divine consciousness. Because if somebody is fixed in a spiritual way, they must be in a certain mood, good or bad, friends or enemies. So Kṛṣṇa is asking this second question. Right? This is also the art of following spiritual life, asking good questions. And Arjuna is the perfect person in asking these. So we can learn from his even questions he's asking. How does he sit? Not does he sit like this? Can he hold it for 3 days? Can he sit on his head? No. What is he asking? What is the mentality of this person when their senses are controlled? Are they frustrated because they used to be able to do something, now they are restricted from doing? Anybody wants to sign up for that program? No, nobody wants to sign up for something that we have restrictions that we want that we can't do anymore. Just ask any child. You like restrictions? No. Adults too. We want freedom to do what we want. So Arjuna is asking, what is the mindset of the person who has restricted their senses? Are they unhappy and frustrated? Or are they extraordinarily blissful? He wants to know. And then the final question. Sometimes we get this question. You people, you're chanting, you're saying, what do you do for fun? What do you do? So Arjuna wants to know. How does he walk? How does he carry himself in the world? What does he do? How does he engage his senses? What activities does he do? Very practical question, right? Because it's great to have maybe these characteristics, maybe to have this mindset, but then what's my practical activity? Right? So Arjuna is asked very intelligently about these 4 questions related to one who has found this divine consciousness. So Kṛṣṇa is going to answer these questions now. Right? So Prabhupada guides us with one thing. How is a fool discovered?
When he speaks.
When he speaks. Right? You can put a nice suit on, have some nice spectacles, tie a little pocket square, and you can walk very confidently into a room of academic PhDs. And you could look like you'd fit right in. But as soon as you speak, everyone will know your position. Right? Because we speak what's stored up here. It just comes out. So Kṛṣṇa's, and Prabhupada says, what does this divine person, what is the immediate symptom of this person in divine consciousness? What is the immediate, most prominent symptom?
He speaks only of Krishna.
He speaks of Krishna. Now why and how we have to come to understand. So let's see the next verse. 55. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said. So now Kṛṣṇa is going to answer the first question. What is the first question? What are the characteristics of this person? So Kṛṣṇa is saying, now here are the characteristics. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in self alone, then he is said to be in transcendental consciousness. So one in divine consciousness is not observed by how one dresses. Do they wear dhoti, kurta, tilak? that means nothing. Right? What verses they memorize, what bhajans they can sing, no. That is not the symptom, the characteristic. So Kṛṣṇa is giving two main symptoms or characteristics. What is the first one? What is the first one?
Use all sense gratification.
Huh?
Use of all
all
sense
sense
gratification.
Has no material desires. This you cannot fake. You can speak some things, but ultimately your material desires will come about. So think about this. Prabhupada said the immediate symptom is one only speaks about Kṛṣṇa. Right? So we said a fool is revealed when they speak. Why? Because there's foolishness in the mind. So let's now build up. I'm going to come back to this. Where do our different sense desires come from, according to the purport here?
Mind.
From the mind. Our mental concoction. It comes up with all kinds of ideas. Right? So let's take a second and understand what the mind is. Okay? So the mind, it's like a storage database. It retains all kinds of desires. I see something, I see an advertisement on the billboard. Ah, this person is happy. I want that product. Desire, etched into the mind. And I smell something. Oh, I want that. Desire, etched into the mind. I taste something. Through my senses, these desires enter into the mind and they are stored into the mind like a database. And they just keep popping up over and over. It's like a virtually limitless billions of desires are stored there. And they keep popping up. And so one pursues various activities based on all of these desires. Right? So this person in divine consciousness, we said, they only speak about Kṛṣṇa. So what is the industrialist capitalist? What do they speak about?
Stuff.
Stuff. Business. How to make money. Politics. Customers. Suppliers. Competitors. Because that's what's in their mind. That's their whole existence. So a devotional person doesn't empty the mind. Say, I want no desires. Kṛṣṇa didn't say they have no desires. What did he say? No material desires. But not no desires. So what desires then are in the mind of a sthita-prajñasya, of a divine consciousness person?
Desire to please Krishna.
All desires, all thoughts of Kṛṣṇa, of spiritual life. And where they came from. Well, where did our material desires come from?
Our mind.
And where did the mind get them from?
Senses.
Things we saw, things we heard, things we tasted, things we touched, things we smelled. So where the spiritual desires are going to come from?
Senses only.
Things we see, things we hear, things we touch, things we smell. Taste. So to develop the spiritual desires, we use the senses. We see the forms of the Lord. We hear the beautiful pastimes of the Lord. We smell the flowers offered to the Lord. And by doing so, what are we doing? We're creating spiritual desires in the mind. So if we just work in a finite level. If I have 100 desires in the mind, and all of a sudden, and then my limit capacity is 100, and now I see Kṛṣṇa, and one desire comes. Now I have 99 material desires, and one spiritual desire. And then I go and I see Kṛṣṇa again. A second desire comes. And now I have to push one more out. That means 98 desires are left. Slowly, one remains fixed in the devotional life. Their whole mind, all 100, will become spiritualized. And Kṛṣṇa is going to speak about this in the 57th verse. Excuse me. Not the 57th verse. He's going to speak about it in the 59th verse. That to become free of material desires, we said, is difficult. But he's going to give the easy formula. He says, just add a little bit of spirituality to your life. And automatically, by this sweet taste of their spiritual experiences, all of the material desires will automatically dissipate. You won't have to remove them. I give the example of a cup filled with water. If a cup is filled with water, I'll give it in more detail next time, and I want to get rid of the water, if I start pouring honey into the cup, what happens? If the cup is filled to the brim with water and I pour, the water overflows. And what happens when I keep pouring more honey? The water naturally overflows, keeps going. I don't have to dump out the cup. It'll automatically happen. Just by adding the sweet honey, the water will be displaced. Similarly, by adding this sweetness of spiritual life, these material desires will automatically dissipate. Trying to take the eraser to the mind is extraordinarily difficult. We can say it's impossible. So what do we do to overcome our material desires? Just keep doing more spiritual life, and it will very naturally and sweetly happen. So the characteristic of a divine consciousness person isn't how many years they've been studying Bhagavad Gita. The measure of our progress in spiritual life is by one criteria. Do I have less material desires today than I did 6 months ago? That is the measure of my progress. Not how straight my tilak is, or how many consecutive months I've been coming. All of that helps to free of material desires. But it is the material desires. That is Kṛṣṇa's opinion. And the second symptom that is revealed, what is the second symptom or characteristic? A little bit harder to pull out.
Can be pure transcendental consciousness.
They're happy. They have happiness. They're blissful. Why? Because they have no more material desires. All material desires 100% result in frustration. Okay? So, how to purify of our desires? We call it subtraction by addition. We all want to subtract by addition. We wish we could subtract some pounds by adding some rasgulla. That'd be nice math, right? Oh, I can eat more. Kṛṣṇa is giving us that formula. That is how sweet the Supreme Lord is. He's saying, don't worry about trying to subtract all of your material desires. Just add. Just chant a little bit more. Just read. Just come and hear. Come see me in the temple. Come participate in my festivals. And don't worry, by your natural attraction to these sweet things, the subtraction will happen. Just like a good, very sophisticated teacher in the classroom. When children are misbehaving, teacher can say, don't do this. But there's only so much you can say, don't. Instead, what a skilled teacher does, do this. And they make it so fun and engaging that they automatically give up these destructive activities. That is what Kṛṣṇa is doing for us. You know, all these activities. We don't want to hear, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Nobody likes that. Kṛṣṇa is saying, subtraction by addition. Just add spiritual life. And all these things will naturally dissipate. This is how eager he is to help us. And why is this person always happy? What is the source of their happiness? Their bank account? The stock market? How many people like them on Facebook? Whether somebody showed them proper respect? Whether society holds them to a certain degree of fame? What is the source of their happiness?
Consciousness changed towards Kṛṣṇa.
Their relationship with Kṛṣṇa. That is the source of their happiness. That's why Kṛṣṇa says, find satisfaction in the self alone. Meaning the self attached to Kṛṣṇa. Now think about this. When you go on a vacation, what is your goal on going on a vacation? To be enjoyed, right? Now, is your opportunity to enjoy fully in your hands? The weather has to cooperate. Let's say you're going to the beach. The weather has to cooperate. No rain. The temperature has to cooperate. The number of people in your vicinity have to cooperate. The sun should not be too strong that you get hot or too less that you're cold. You should have adequate foodstuffs, drinks, entertainment, so many things to allow you to enjoy that beach vacation. It's not in your control. So what happens? Sometimes you'll be happy, and sometimes you won't. You go to some party. Your goal is to enjoy. But based on you get there, oh, so-and-so is not talking to me, they're paying more attention to somebody else. Now I'm not happy. The topic of conversation is so boring, we should be talking about this. I'm unhappy. The food they served, I ate that last night, is leftovers, I'm not eating it now. I'm unhappy. So in our material affairs, our happiness is dependent on so many things. But if I'm finding my bliss in my relationship with Kṛṣṇa, what circumstance can interfere with my relationship with Kṛṣṇa?
Nothing.
If it's raining outside, does it matter? If it's beautiful and sunny outside, does it matter? If the stock market is up or it is down. Somebody thinks I am great or a fool. Does any of that matter? If I have one thought in my mind and that is my loving relationship with Kṛṣṇa? No, we don't care. We have some semblance of this when a young boy and a young girl meet and they have this deep, fond attachment. They don't care what anyone else thinks. They don't care anything else. This is a very impure way of about this, but there's some parallel to that. When our love for Kṛṣṇa is there, there's nothing that can get in the way of our happiness. Because it doesn't matter the external circumstances. So one who has found divine consciousness, they're always happy because the source of their happiness is the eternal, unlimited relationship with Kṛṣṇa. And because it's so sweet, it never gets tiring. You never can get to the bottom, the end of the sweetness. Each bite is more sweet than the last one. Each day is more sweet than the prior. Unlike anything we've ever seen. Each day we watch a movie, we get less sweetness from it. Each day we eat some food stuff, we get less happiness from it. Even our relationships, sometimes we get tired of them. I need some space. So the sthita-prajña person has great happiness because it's coming from their relationship with the Lord. And nothing can get in its way. How many of us would like to find uninterrupted happiness despite whatever is happening around us? How powerful that would be. How strong that would make us. So this is achieved by this symptom of no material desires. This happens. So this is how we can see who has achieved this divine consciousness. No other measure. So we can evaluate our own progress towards this goal by this metric. So let us not be fooled also by some ulterior metrics, characteristics. In society, there are many fools who pose themselves to be extraordinarily learned and trying to spread some knowledge and philosophy. But there are so many deep motives behind it. Kṛṣṇa is giving us the exacting criteria by which we can assess and evaluate. So before we answer this last question, we'll continue now next week answering the second question of Arjuna. Which was? Anybody remember?
It's a characteristic speak.
How does he speak? Right? How is his mentality affected? His words, how are they affected when he faces good or a setback? How many of us would like to be calm and equipoise, strong in either scenario? No, we'd like to. And we'd like our spouses to be also. Right? And our children. And all of our loving relationships. Kṛṣṇa is going to explain that. So, as we think about this subtraction by addition, I thought we could share, what Kṛṣṇa conscious things give you happiness? Anything?
These meetings do.
I mean, what?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. These meetings do.
These meetings.
I'm always happier when I leave here, and I'm riled up a lot. But I'm always happier when I leave here. I'm calm when I get here. I look forward to coming here. I always try really hard to come here, and I'm always happier when I leave.
Would you have guessed that before you started coming?
No, and I love you guys, and it's partly you guys, and it's partly all of this. It's a combination. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something.
Chanting also gives certain kind of happiness. Even sometimes just listening to the Lord's pastimes, the stories somehow. Then bhajans, listening to the sweet ones. Sometimes you feel like you can start dancing to some of these sweet bhajans. So all that really brings in. Reading books of Prabhupada, I think. I liked it.
Srila Prabhupada translated the pastimes of Kṛṣṇa in this Kṛṣṇa book for this purpose. Even before he completed the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he wanted to present all the sweet activities of Kṛṣṇa. And the reason is, when we begin to hear about the activities of Kṛṣṇa, they blow our mind at how much love he has for his devotees, and how much pleasure and happiness they experience in each other's company, that it inspires us to achieve and to acquire that. Right? Like we hear of somebody who went to Hawaii and how amazing it was and how wonderful, and it inspires a desire in us to go. So similarly, by hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, it inspires us to have that relationship with Krishna. So I encourage you, if you don't have this Krishna book, acquire it. And start reading, just one story at a time. They're so sweet. And so just hearing the pastimes are very, very... Any other things people are experiencing? Happiness in Krishna consciousness?
Especially on Sunday when we come to temple, meet with devotees. It's like extended family get-together. Like we have a close relation, but it's kind of like we participate in the kirtan, arti, serving to the devotee. That is the ultimate happiness.
People come to the temple on the Sunday and sometimes they'll come for like a historical tour. Which is nice, a beautiful building, so much history. And they'll think, what is this place? There's like some energy here. There's something that it's extraordinary. I can touch and feel it, but I can't at the same time. And that is Krishna, that is not theory. That is Krishna reciprocating with us. When we make the effort to go see Him in His home, He is so grateful that He exchanges with us this emotion of happiness and peace. It's not just a mental concoction, it's actually a science. That Krishna is saying thank you. And you have come, you have taken the effort out of your Sunday. You had so many different things you could do. You drove some distance. You had to park, then you had to walk, and you come in, and you see, and there's Krishna thanking you, and He reciprocates with this emotion, this feeling. It's not just, some, sentiment. That is the tangible reciprocation from Krishna. I encourage you all, come on Sundays. You'll experience it for yourself. It'll sound, it's crazy. Everything sounds crazy at first until we experience it. You tell a young boy that this giant mass of steel can float in the sky. You don't think, I throw my bottle and it comes down. No way. But when he experiences the ride of the airplane, it can happen. Similarly, these experiences in the temple, they're very powerful. If you're enjoying this, you'll enjoy that also. It's a very different experience. They're both sweet. Thank you.
I want to share one more experience. Recently I invited my colleague. She came from Mexico for a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that how she connected to Krishna. She went back to Mexico. I want to say thanks to her, and she mentioned that his father bought a Bhagavad Gita 10 years ago, but he's no more with her. But she told that I felt like when he come to the temple, I feel that I was connected to God. So she will be coming back by January, I think, again. I told, okay, come see. I didn't know that. Yeah. Then I realized, okay, how Krishna is, getting connected all the souls which are attracted towards him. So I'm so happy that, at least, she could able to connect to the Krishna all more time.
Thank you.
It's a kind of, the experience cannot be shared, but it's within, how, Krishna made it happen.
Any other experiences?
Just wanted to add and support what Jamal Prabhu said. Coming to the temple is extraordinary, has really changed so much of us. And when we sometimes we think the distance is too much, 45 minutes distance, maybe some other day, some other week. But really Krishna makes it worth the drive. And what we come back with a very, very, some kind of a happiness which cannot be replaced by any other activity which you would have done on Sunday evening. That's probably our best time. And second best time which I have every day is the first part of my time. The time when I get up in the morning, and the first 2 hours makes the entire day. I try my best that there should not be, but still I'm working on my a lot of shortcomings which I have, but it makes it worth it. So that really gives me a lot of happiness. Getting up early gives, and that's because of Krishna. It's not because of any other reason.
When you get up early and you say you chant or you read
Chant.
or
I chant.
Now,
That's the best part of my day.
now, if you think about it, what's our favorite part of the weekend? Sleeping in.
late.
Sleeping in late. And now she is saying, getting up early. But this is what spiritual life is about. It breaks some of our conventional wisdoms. And it's experiential. You know, I always say, you know, if I bring a piece of cake here and we talk about how sweet the cake is, how much sugar it is, nice honey is there, and it's made of this nice buttercream frosting and beautiful sweet carrots. I love carrot cake. And I can talk about it till we're blue in the face. You may be convinced if it's sweet, but when will you know it's sweet? When you taste it. When we taste it. So Krishna consciousness is like that. It is sweet, but we have to experience. Yeah.
So Prabhu, like all along in my experience, like I've seen people who comes to temple, they are like very serious, very respectful, finish the job and get out. But there's a mandir is like my experience where people are so happy inside that place, you know, like they never see you or like they don't care about anyone, they just dance, and like that's my. We can also be like this. Just something that I kind of
It's like a family.
learned to.
Those of us who come from India, our experiences in temples are very different.
Yeah.
Because most of our visits to temples are for a business transaction. And the people in the temple are also interested in a business transaction. And it's a two-way street and makes it a very unsweet experience for both sides. But Srila Prabhupada has established our spiritual centers as a means of association to experience Krishna consciousness in a vivid way. Because we have to experience things in vivid. Why do we want big TVs and 4,000 pixel whatever, 8? Because we want it vividly. We want to see the things vividly. Where we can feel Krishna vividly? In His home. That is the purpose of that. As you said, it's a very different experience than our traditional experiences in spiritual life.
And especially the morning 4:30 is really definitely a good, you know, quality time, but it's just that we can't make it every day. But that day when you make it, morning, even that day when you get up, or even that night you feel like, okay, why not you skip it? Right? But somehow you still, but then like that 4:30 time is, because you're ready to see Krishna and the ambience.
And the sweetness is because He knows you sacrificed. You sacrificed your sleep, your comfort, some money to dry. Krishna knows you're sacrificing. And thus He reciprocates. The relationship with the Lord is not one way. We give and no. No, whatever we give, Krishna gives millions times more. I was telling the story of the fruit vendor last Friday. She gave some berries from the jungle. And Krishna gave everything. More berries than she could have collected in 10 lifetimes worth of jewels. And even the jewels were nothing. What He really gave her was Krishna prema, love of God. Any other things people enjoy in Krishna consciousness? Yeah, please.
From my childhood, I was trained like around evening 6:30 to 7. I need to light the lamp and I need to chant. So that was being followed. Any other time I don't feel like chanting. On the time the 6:37, my brain tells like, oh, it's the time to light the lamp and do chanting. But nowadays, see with the kids, it's difficult. You know? So what I'll do, I'll find some time to relax myself, to watch some movie. When my daughter sleeps, my son go to school. I feel like relax at time. The sleeping time 2 hours is my free time. I can watch movie or so do something in moment. But nowadays I feel like when she's sleeping I need to chant. So it's automatically it's coming like I should chant. Because whenever I take the beat, she'll come and pull it and go. So when she's sleeping, I feel like it's a nice time I should chant. But not in the evening, morning, or afternoon, or any time. I feel like chanting.
Before coming, you could imagine I would chant over movies? Never. Never. But if we said, oh, you have to give up movies, then chant. It would never work. I used to be addicted to football. Sunday afternoons meant football, U.S. football. Never I went care less. But if Krishna put the formula that you have to give up first, then start, it'll never happen. But he's so sweet. He says, you try it. And then let it happen. Nobody else gives us that formula. Employer says, you first do everything, then you come work for me. Give up your other jobs, show me all the qualifications, resumes, past experience. You work, and after 10, 12 days, then I'll pay you. Krishna, whatever you're qualified, just start. And one thing has not been said so far, I'm shocked. Prasadam.
What did you say? You said you liked the... What did you
Lamp.
say you liked?
Lamp. A ghee lamp.
Oh, like, okay. What?
It's a ghee lamp. It's an offering to the Lord we make. It's a symbol of our, the light of our devotion that we offer to the Lord. So we'll do it in October. We'll be lighting a lamp every week.
I've never seen a lamp.
Yeah. If you when at the temple, if you come for the services, you'll also see we offer a lamp to the Lord. You can also do in your home. We'll show you. Yeah, it's very sweet.
People
She'll show
also
you.
meditate or they do chanting in the evening time. We do in our homes.
The prasadam what is served is opulent and people will not resist, though like it's like while preparing that as a bhoga is also very happy, and while serving also it's really happy. That's one of the happiest thing that we can see, that people can take unlimited food and they can be fulfill like whatever they want. It's the ultimate thing that lastly everybody enjoys.
Nobody says no to prasadam.
Yeah. Everybody are very happy.
You may fall asleep in Bhagavatam class, Bhagavad Gita. Nobody falls asleep in prasadam class. In ISKCON, there's one joke. What is the sleeping prayer? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And what is the waking prayer? Mahaprasade Govinde Amrvam.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Can you go back to the chariot slide?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
I mean, I probably don't need the slide, but where does your heart fall into that? Is your heart your mind, or does that fall under your intelligence?
More your intelligence.
Or
More your intelligence. Because your heart, you know in your heart of hearts what's right and what's wrong. Right? You have that instinct, that natural disposition to goodness. You have those things. But what happens is those dispositions can be overpowered by an unruly mind. Krishna is going to speak in the 6th chapter about controlling the mind. And Arjuna says it's easier to control the wind than it is to control the mind.
so your heart is part of your intelligence.
Yeah, in some way you can say it's fun, but the soul resides in the heart. So when we speak about, oh, my heart wants to do this, it's, you know, it is a mix, because there's these sort of passions that reside in the heart too. So
How does senses come into that? Doesn't the senses affect the heart?
So senses do, in the sense that senses are the gateways, right? They're the entry points into the mind and intelligence, and ultimately into the soul.
Because I always feel like I don't use my brain for thinking. Like, I just feel like I make all my decisions with my heart. And I don't think that's a good way of living my life.
Yeah, I mean, you're using a form of your intelligence, which is your emotional, you know, sort of intelligence in some way.
Which
you could
is
say.
my senses, though. Isn't my emotional,
No,
my senses are
your
not?
senses your senses are literally your eyes, your ears, your nose.
Okay.
They're the recipients of all this information. Data is received through the eyes. data is received through the nose, through the ears, through the tongue, through the touch. Right? So you acquire all this data. The data is stored in the mind. And then the intelligence is the decision on what to do. But sometimes, if we don't have intelligence, then it's good to chant the holy names of the Lord, then we'll do something else. So we have to strengthen our intelligence by acquiring this knowledge. Right? So we may be making so many decisions. We make the decisions based on what we know, the best we know, right? A young child makes decisions based on what they know. As we grow up, we make different decisions. We have more intelligence in theory. So, Kṛṣṇa spoke about being miserly. If we're using our intelligence just to eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, and defend nicely, then what are we really doing for the service of our soul to bring it back to its original home? Right? So, this process of acquiring knowledge is to help us make better decisions at the end of the day. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to make good decisions, how to make the best decisions that will yield the best outcomes in all circumstances. And that is what we are in the process of doing. We're acquiring so much knowledge, and now it's up to us to put it into action or not. I know attending Mangalarti is going to be sweet, an experience and fun. But the mind will say, take rest. Go next time. Which is going to win? Well, if the intelligence is so strong, has such a strong conviction, it will overpower the mind. But if the intelligence is weak, like this driver, then the ropes will slip from its hands. If our intelligence isn't so strong to know I am part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, I have this eternal relationship, then the desires of the mind will overtake the intelligence. So our process here is to strengthen our intelligence so that we make nice decisions, and that the spirit soul will return back home where it belongs, where it came from. It's okay? Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
In 53 is the divine consciousness, and 55 there is a transcendental consciousness. So what is the
Same thing, sthita-prajñasya. The Sanskrit saying slightly different. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
both are the same?
Yeah, because divine is transcendental, is beyond the modes. So our
Transcendental
conscious-
also beyond the moon.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? So, Sunday, yeah,
I have one question.
yeah.
So how are the gunas connected to this transcendental consciousness?
How are the modes of material nature connected to? So if you go to plate 6 in your Bhagavad Gita, this is the 6th picture. You'll see these 3 personalities. This is sattva-gun, raja-gun, and tamo-gun. Goodness, passion, ignorance. And they're having strings that are pulling these people. Everybody sees it?
Yeah.
So who is situated above the modes? So when we say transcendental to what? It's transcendental, we have to transcend the modes, get beyond the modes, above the modes. So divine consciousness means no more mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. I am beyond those modes. I am into spiritual life. So these modes are material. Above material is spiritual. So when we talk about transcendental, we can visualize getting beyond the modes. And one example we always give, like if you're in a boat and you're in the water. When you're in a boat in the water, you're going to go up and down. left and right, moved by the waves. These are like modes of nature. They're going to throw you left and right, up and down, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But if you were situated in a boat and you bring the boat just 1 inch above the water, now, no more ups and downs. Waves are still going up and down, but you are transcendentally situated. You are situated above the modes. And now no more ups and downs. This divine consciousness becomes very steady. Doesn't mean good and bad won't happen. Trust me, if you become, fixed in your devotional service, doesn't mean nothing bad will happen. It's not like a bulletproof vest. No. Yeah, some things will happen due to past karma. But the consciousness will not be affected. Pulling the boat out of the water, you're not stopping the waves. You're stopping the waves from affecting me on that boat. So we are trying to bring our consciousness from this very low level of consciousness to a higher level. And by doing so, we'll transcend the modes. So this divine means it's beyond the modes of goodness. Mode of goodness is better than mode of passion. Mode of passion is better than mode of ignorance. But mode of goodness is still, remember, a golden chain. It's still a chain. We have to get beyond it. Now, what are the modes and all that is a much more in-depth question, but...
One more question I have. So I have seen some pujaris working in temple all the time, fully serving the god. But the material desires are completely material. How is that possible when a person is always in temple, always serving God? So I cannot connect that.
You went to school, right? Does going to the library mean you'll get straight A's or top scores? Physically being in a library, does that help?
No.
No.
Your success in school isn't measured by how many hours you spent in a library.
No.
It's measured by what I did. So Kṛṣṇa is not saying that you're divine fixed after you spend so much time in this. It's not a measure of how long I've been coming to Bhakti Vriksha. It's not a measure of how many, mantras I know. It's not a measure of that. What is the measure? How much have I detached from my material desires? That is the measure. Because that is observable by us. How much I'm attached to Kṛṣṇa is still subjective. But I can measure, I'm going to pick on this for a second. How many movies have I seen? That's a measurable attachment. I can measure. How many football games have I watched? That I can measure. What is my love of Kṛṣṇa? Hard to measure. So Kṛṣṇa says, the symptom is no material desires. So how close am I? So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you know if you're making progress in spiritual life, right? We want to know, am I making progress? Just like if I go to the gym, I want to know, am I making progress? If I go to the library, am I making... The measure of progress is today, do I have fewer material desires than I did 6 months ago? If I can say yes, I have made progress. If I'm not sure, then we should double down and a little more effort. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives the story of the boat party. I've told this in some form, I'll tell it again. So once a wedding party was going, the groom's party was going to meet the bride's party for the wedding. And so one evening they reached the river and they were going to get on a boat, and the boatman was overnight going to take them to the bride's place for the wedding the next morning. So they all boarded the boat, got nicely situated. This evening, they paid the boatman some nice sum of money, make sure he was well fed, and they went to take rest. And boatman began to row, and was rowing and rowing and rowing. And so in the early morning, just sun was coming up, and we must have reached. Thank you, boatman. But then they looked around and they saw, they haven't left. And they started yelling at the boatman. Well, what do you mean? I've been rowing all night. Look at all my sweat. I'm tired. I've been rowing and rowing. Yeah, he's been rowing. So they went to investigate. What's the problem? They didn't untie the boat from the tree. That is spiritual life when we remain attached to our material desires. We may be rowing and rowing and doing so much. But if I haven't detached, unhooked from my material desires, I'll not go anywhere. So I can go in the temple and render service. What is the motive? Is it a job? Is it following some obligations? Is it a sense of power? Is it a sense of fame? Or is it love for Kṛṣṇa? If it's love for Kṛṣṇa, then of course you're going to have less love for all my material desires, because material desires means everything separate from Kṛṣṇa. What is a material desire? Anything not in relationship to Kṛṣṇa. So don't measure, this is a big devotee, because they're in the temple. Maybe, maybe not. Don't make any assumptions is the safest. Don't judge anyone. Focus on yourself. Focus on ourselves. It's okay. So that's how it can happen. If we don't detach from our material desires, and detachment from material desires come when we have knowledge. We cannot just act sentimentally, emotionally. We must act with intelligence.
Attachment to material desires, that's
Detachment from material.
detachment from material desires is kind of like living like a minimalist, right?
Well,
Because that's becoming like a trend.
That's what I call an artificial means to detachment. So an artificial means to detachment is, I'll use in that vernacular, I'm going to live like a minimalist. I don't need 6 pairs of shoes, I need 1 pair of shoes. I don't need a 5,000 square foot house, I need a simple 2-bedroom apartment. Right? So that's a means of doing that. But those are artificial means, they're not sustainable. Why? Because the taste for those nicer things doesn't relinquish. So I can artificially suppress them for some time. But how to lose the taste for those things is I have to replace it with something that's sweeter. Replace it with a higher taste.
So my question to you is, could I be both? Like eventually?
What?
Be a minimalist and live in Kṛṣṇa's consciousness?
Yeah. You can be a minimalist and be in spiritual life, and you can live in a gigantic palace surrounded by thousands of servants with royal garments and eating royal foods, and also be in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Difficult.
Even in a giant palace with a bunch of stuff?
If it's all,
But I thought you said we can have a bunch of stuff.
you can have a bunch of stuff if it's used in Kṛṣṇa's service. That is you're hitting right to the core of this. Minimalist does not
That's
mean
gotta be a pain.
No, you're hitting to the core of it. The minimalist means I am minimizing the needs for my own enjoyment, and I am maximizing the needs to please Kṛṣṇa. There are great royal kings. Ambarish Maharaj. He was king of the entire planet for a period of time. Opulences beyond our even comprehension, but was a pure devotee of the Lord. Every action he did was in service to the Lord. So he was utilizing the palace and his army and his treasury, not to satisfy his senses, but using them in the service of Kṛṣṇa. So real minimalists, or we use the word renunciation, to renounce all of these things, means not to give them up, but to give them up for our own pleasure, but to actually use them in Krishna's service. Anashaktasya vishane tharam panjate nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya jite. Yukta vairagya. Real renunciation is, if you give me $1 million, great. I'm going to use it in Krishna's service. If I don't have $1 million, no problem. That is Krishna's desire. Whatever comes, I'm going to use it. False renunciation means you give me $1 million, say, oh, no, that's a material thing. Now I'm foregoing an opportunity to use something for Krishna. That is false renunciation. So what we are trying to do is forego all of our material things for our own pleasure and use it for Krishna's pleasure. And when we do, our pleasure grows beyond comprehensible amounts. So you can be a minimalist. And most times, there are fewer souls, I'll say it this way, that can live in the midst of all this opulence and not have some material desires. So most of people, we make spiritual progress, yeah, we actually try to minimize our, because they're a tempting distraction to our real purpose. But there are some, devotees who can be in the midst of great opulence and be unmoved by it, unattached, because their attachments to something higher, and that is Krishna. So, when we say no material desires, it doesn't mean we have no things. It means that the things we have, whatever they are, we're using them with Krishna. Remember, way back to the seminar, I didn't say that at the end of this session we're going to put up all our things on eBay and move to the Himalayas. Right? That's not what we're going to do. But if we start to shed some of the excesses in our life, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that excesses become a detriment to our spiritual life. Atyahara-prayasascha. This overconsumption, overindulging, it becomes a barrier. We have to spend more time, so we're over-endeavoring. So you can be that way. But we should also not judge. Oh, this person's more of a minimalist, they must be a better devotee. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're being a minimalist just to, follow some fad. Maybe they're being a minimalist to acquire our adoration. Many people do things for the show.
Most things are done for show.
Thank you. I was being polite.
I've never lied, so.
No, you're being real. Most things are done for a show. Right? So what matters is here. This is what matters. What's in the heart? What's our goal? That's like being in the temple. What matters is what's in the heart when we're in the temple. Right? What's our mood? It's okay? Shall we chant? Oh, sorry, really quick. So this Sunday, very, very important. On Sunday, we're celebrating the appearance of Srimati Radharani. So we had Shri Kṛṣṇa Janmashtami, we had Lord Balaram Jayanti, and now this Sunday, September 16th, we'll be celebrating Shri Radhastami. It's a very, very auspicious day. Srimati Radharani is our mother. We approach Krishna through the mercy of our mother, Srimati Radharani.